Hello my friends, welcome back to another little tutorial. This week I'm going to be painting a lovely little boat with reflections. A simple boat on its own with some reflections. I hope you don't mind. I got a few requests for these kinds of scenes, so I thought it would make a lovely little subject to practice detail. Well, not detail, but creating the impression of lots of detail. So a simple scene with a boat on its own with some reflections. I will try to simplify it for you, but it's really just lots of little dabs with a pointy brush. That's all it is. I hope you like it. Have fun. Join me. Follow me along if you wish. And let me know what you think. Let's go and have some fun. Okay, my friends, let's go. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. These are my colours. Titanium white, magenta, phaylo blue, naples yellow, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, pale, lamp black, burnt umber and burnt sienna. There's a photograph. Isn't that lovely? I think just a lovely simple subject for you to practice on with your details. So let's go. Nice simple background in this. I want to mix a very light pink for the top half of this canvas. Okay, I primed it once, just once, with a white undercoat, and it's dry, so it should be fine. Let's take some titanium white, a little bit of thinners on this now just to thin it out nicely. Take a touch of magenta, tiny touch. I want this background very, very pale. Really, really pale, okay? Now, into that, I took a tiny touch of cadmium red, and I'm now going to take some naples yellow. That will give us a very warm, pinkish kind of a background, okay? It's light, but it's a warm pink, if you understand what I mean. Let's take that, very, very light pinky colour. That's good, I like that. I'm just going to put a light coat of this, very, very thin as well, okay? There's lots of thinners in this. I just want a very light coat across my canvas. I'm not too worried about covering the canvas exactly, completely, perfectly, because it's so light we can hardly even see it. You probably can't even see that now, but it's a very, very soft, bright, whitey kind of a pink. Right now, I did put a little quick sketch of my boat here with some, I thought it was a pencil, but it's actually a green crayon, kind of a green pencil, so it doesn't matter. It'll be gone by the time we come down to it anyway and start painting it. So very light colours. As it comes down, we start adding more blue. So I'm going to get little phaylo blue and lots of white. And again, I'm keeping these colours quite thin. So what I mean by that, I don't mean lots of thinners. What I mean is I'm using a tiny amount of paint, the tiniest little amount, so there's very little on my brush really, and I'm going to be scraping that right across the canvas. Into that I'm going to take a touch of cadmium red, just to soften it ever so slightly. We could take a touch of magenta as well if we like. Let me take a look. That's still too bright. I want a very white, you can see it on the picture, it's a very whitey colour, it's very light. There's a lot of light in this colour. So I'm just going to go along here, right through the reflections now and everything, okay, the whole lot, right through everything. A touch more magenta, and more white, and a touch more thinners. It's really so soft, the colour, even on the photograph as you can see it, it's so soft, isn't it? Touch more magenta now in this. I want to just pink it, make it slightly more pink as it comes up into the lighter colour above. You see what I mean? Look. Now imagine you're going right through your boat. I'm just kind of leaving it, but I'm imagining my brush stroke is going right through to keep it nice and even on both sides. So look, right up into that whitey colour. You can see that disappearing. It just goes up and it disappears into the white. Very lightly. And then come down and soften all of this together. Lovely and soft. Okay, now that's quite nice. As we come down, I'm going to start adding a little more phaylo blue into this. It gets slightly richer, and you could probably use cobalt for this as well, if you like. But just for the bottom, you see, it's a nice rich blue, isn't it? So I'm just going to pop that in. I'm scraping it across my canvas now, so there's a very thin coat of paint on my canvas. With regular oil painting, so to speak, you put lots of thick paint on your canvas, but I find that much more difficult to work with. So I like to keep my first layers quite thin. I'm getting more now, slightly thicker, look, slightly richer colour. Phaylo blue and a little of the magenta. And I'm going slightly richer just along the bottom. Now you could, if you want, put a touch of cadmium yellow through this as well, if you want to make it that more greeny. Let's try a touch of cadmium yellow. Just to make it that more kind of a turquoisey, bluey colour, if you understand what I mean. We could pop a little bit of that in. I think that would just complement the pinks, because a turquoise colour will really complement the pinky colour. And you can see in the reflections we have a lot of pink in there as well. So I think this would make a nice complementary colour just to balance out the painting. So I'll just think now, I'll stop at that. I think I have enough. I want to make sure I don't have any rich kind of dark lines going across my canvas anywhere. So I'm softening this now a good bit with my brush, all the way up and all the way down. Look, nice and soft. And I think we're good with that. So that's the background finish, my friends. Nice and simple. You can, if you like, just keep it this light colour all the way down as well, if you like. You don't have to, you know, merge these colours together if you're not confident enough. I think it's time to start our boat. And okay, let's go. Let's just grab a colour. I'm going to grab, dampen my brush first, little flat brush, look. I think I'll go with some burnt umber to begin with, and some Naples yellow. Now I do want a nice kind of a thick colour in this, so a little bit of magenta as well. So we've burnt umber, magenta, and a little touch of Naples yellow as well. Just, I suppose, to start us off. We'll get these lines in on the boat. I normally tend to start with the defining lines on a subject and then work my way into those, if you understand what I mean. So I'm just going to go down here with this one, and I generally pick a kind of a middle of the road colour, and we can work our colours into that then. Now for that curve, I'm going to just switch brushes for a moment. I'm going to get a small round brush, and let's take a little more of that. And I'm just going to fill in that curve with this small round brush. So it comes around like this, doesn't it? And this is probably the most important part. Getting the perspective right on something like this is always, for me, the most important part of a painting. Because, you know, that tells you what's going on. Now I've taken a little black there just for the front piece here. I'm going to pop that front piece in. And you can see I'm using a thick, flat brush. So I'm not really too worried about getting all my lines absolutely perfect, because we can fix those as we're going later. So honestly, don't worry. Now we have our kind of boundary lines set, so to speak. I'm now just going to fill this area in with a kind of a grey brown. Let's just say a grey brown kind of a colour. So burnt sienna, lamp black, and some white. I'm going for a kind of a medium shade of a grey, sort of a brown colour. The bit of black will just make that a kind of a grey brown, a sort of a taupe kind of a colour. Does that make sense? There, can you see that? A kind of a taupe colour, I'm thinking, just to get us started. Let's fill this in, and it's a dry canvas again, remember. No need to oil the canvas for this, because it's just a small subject. We'll get away with just filling in little pieces at a time. I would almost compare it to painting by numbers, so to speak. So you have your shapes, and you're just going to start filling those shapes in one by one. So we have the inside of the boat done. And I like to start with a kind of a darkish colour like that. Now, if you notice on the back end here, it gets very dark, doesn't it? So let's just take a little black, and let's soften a little black into that at the back. Just like this, okay? And then let it kind of soften outwards. So we're going, you know, add little bits at a time. I'll take black, I'll take a touch of magenta as well. And I'm only mixing tiny amounts of colour for this, okay? You don't have to go crazy mixing big huge lumps of colour. It's just a waste of paint. I see it all the time on tutorials on YouTube from other artists where they just go in and they mix tons and tons of paint on their palette, and it's just left there in the end, and it's just a waste of paint. So we have a nice variant, you see that? I just softened some dark in there and brought it across and softened it out. Now if you want I can zoom in just on the boat if you like, but I think you like to see my palette as well. So I'm going to leave it. Now I'm cleaning that brush, just give it a wipe. I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller flat brush, okay? Only just to give me a little bit more control. So a nice small little flat brush, look. Very small. I think it's a size 4 flat. I'm now going to start working on some lights. You see the lights we have here, this light coming across. I'm going to start doing that, and I think sometimes it's difficult to separate colours on a photograph. So what I would do in my head is I'm blocking out everything else and I'm focusing on that one light colour, which seems like a white with some Naples yellow perhaps. So I'm just going to try it and see. And you can see the light is coming at an angle, so we're going to go down at an angle like this. So what I'll do is I'll draw an imaginary line here, just with the paint, look, a little line like that, and everything from that point forward is going to be a lighter shade, okay? So let's take our Naples yellow and white, and let's just start pulling it down like this. And soften that across. Now I'm going at a slight angle as well, because when painting boats, it's a good idea to follow the shape and the direction of the wood. So you can see everything is coming down at this kind of an angle then, you see. Then what I do is I clean my brush, I'll just give it a wipe on some tissue, and I'm going to soften together where they meet. Look, very gently, just soften that together. Pull the colours in together. So now we have a nice soft graduation, don't we? And this as well is just the early stages, okay? This is very, very early. Now I'm going to mix a kind of a purpley colour with some magenta and some blue and a fair bit of white. And I want to pop this purpley shade just along here. I suppose it's more of a pinky shade really than anything else, isn't it? And all of these subtle changes in colour will make a huge difference. You may not see it now, but once it's finished you will see these little hints of purple. Now I'm putting a rich dark purple down in here as well, look, just to really show off the shadowed side of the inside of the boat, just to really show that off. And I'll also take some of that, maybe pop a little bit of that along here as well, very gently softening it outwards, you see, look. Because, you know, even though we have some lights and darks, there's a lot of different shades you can put in as well at the same time. You don't just have to put in a light and a dark. You can put in light pinks, creamy colours, bluey colours. You can put a lot of that kind of stuff through one small area as well. For example, if I take some magenta, okay, some Naples yellow and some white, I can put this very kind of a sunlit colour just in here and there as well. Now clean your brush each time you're doing this, because the secret to this is having a nice clean brush in between. So I'm popping this in then as well, look, just here and there, and again kind of soften it through the dark. Now by using the point and the corner of our brush like this, we're also creating those boards coming down, you see, at the same time. So we're going pretty well, aren't we? I'm just going to hit this now with some really bright colour. My final shade of light colour in this is going to be cadmium yellow, Naples yellow and white. So a very bright shade. Now this may be a little bit wet, but look, we'll try it. I just want to really catch some sunlight just along one side of this, because it's very bright, isn't it? It's a very bright sun kind of coming through the boat here and there. Now I'll stop at that. I'm going to now take my soft blender brush and with the corner of it, just very gently soften those together. Very gently. And I'm pretty happy that's the inside of my boat done. The next piece I'm going to do is with a very new pointy brush. Look at that, lovely and pointy. I'm going to just start putting in the little bracing pieces of the boat in here. So the pieces that are kind of holding it all together, so to speak. I'm going to use burnt umber, a little thinners with some burnt umber. And let's just see how this works. Maybe a touch of black as well. I want a nice dark line, okay? A nice dark line on the tip of my brush, and just start putting in some of these uprights like this, look. And at the same time put a little bit of a curve on these as well. And keep reloading your brush. For me, this painting really is all about detail. It's about catching these little details. And it's very good practice as well for getting your details in a little picture like this. Even though it may seem like a very small area, it is possible to get a lot of detail into a little subject like this. Okay, I have those in. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to put some lights on these. So again, I'm going to take some of the white with some Naples yellow, and with a very fine tip on my brush, just the top sections where they're hitting the light. I'm going to just soften a bright colour down into those, okay? Just on the right hand side of those. And just keep cleaning your brush, because you will see it's mixing with the colour already there, which can be quite frustrating, but just keep cleaning your brush and putting fresh paint on your brush. That's all you have to do, okay? There. Now already we have, we have a fair bit of detail going on inside the boat, I think. So we're going pretty well. I'm going to put a nice dark piece of bracing just across here. And even the fact that that's kind of softening into the colours that are there is a good thing. That's what you want, because that's what makes it stand out. That's what makes a painting for me stand out, when you have colours which are kind of merging together on the canvas. So that's a good thing. And a little bit of light across on top of that. Just remember, focus on one piece at a time. That's what I would say. Just one piece at a time. Now I'm going to take some of this Naples yellowy colour and I'm going to go across like this. Now you could see straight away that colour disappeared, didn't it? And that's just because we're building up our layers of paint. but it's still showing little bits at a time. I get some Naples yellow and some cadmium yellow and some white. And I'm just going to kind of hit the sides of these with that light colour, you see? Just there. Now we have some of these seats coming across as well, don't we? I want to put in these seats. For that I'm going to use, again, Naples yellow, cadmium yellow and lots of white. The cadmium yellow will really give this sort of a sunlit feel. So I'm going to go around here and bring one straight across first like that. Then I'll clean my brush again, go back into the same colour. I'll do another one around here. Remember, completely horizontal, okay? Well, more or less horizontal anyway. Now I'm noticing there's a lot of pinky colours going on in this painting. So I'm going to add some pinky colours. I've taken some magenta and cadmium yellow. I'm going to just add some pinks into this, just to give it a slightly warmer kind of a feel. I think that would help. Now we have some kind of bracing as well on the sides, don't we? And for that, I'm simply just going to give it a little bit of a wiggle here and there. I'm just creating an impression. That's all. A small impression. I'll do the same on this side. Again, it's only a rough impression, all right? Now, I will have a lot of work to do still on this, in the sense that I'm going to take some black and some magenta. I'm going to just reinforce some of the darks in here, okay? All of these darks will make sense very soon. And apart from anything else, it's almost kind of giving you the impression that there's a lot of detail going on as well, even though there's not. I'm just kind of being very loose with the details now at this stage. So you can see I'm just kind of popping in little suggestions of little brackets and that kind of thing. Very, very small suggestions. A little bit of black along underneath these. So all of these tiny lines will help. And I'm going to just darken some of this as well to suggest a shadow from those seats. Okay, so we're not doing too badly so far, not too bad. I'm going to just warm some parts of this with some magenta and burnt sienna with a little white. I think it needs a little bit of warmth here and there in some parts. So I think that little touch of sienna will help warm some of these up. Okay, I think it works. And finally, I'm going to be very brave and take some phaylo blue and some white. And I want to pop a little phaylo blue and some white across on top of those seats, just to create a little bit of light catching some of them. Now, I think it's a good idea to stop at this and focus more on the boat itself, the actual hull of the boat. And we can come back to all this later on. But I just want to give you a nice kind of an open tutorial, really. A nice kind of, a very loose sort of tutorial. I'm just going to go along now and put this in here. Just reinforce the dark of this piece. Very gently go along, paint that in. And as it turns, I'm then going to lighten. I'm going to lighten this with some burnt sienna, maybe some Naples yellow. So I'm going to lighten all of this as it turns, and I'm going to soften into the black, you see? Drag the black across and let it disappear. So we go from a dark to a slightly lighter shade. Again, I'm leaving all the details around this until the very end. There's no rush. Right, along top of this with some burnt sienna, like that. And then we'll go into a darker colour from here. Like so. Now I'm just going to darken this, just soften these together here, okay? I think it needs a little bit of softening. Like that. Right, I'm going to start the hull. Let's clean my brush. I'm going to clean my small flat brush that I had. The hull is quite simple on this. I'm going to start with some white and some cadmium yellow. A nice simple bright colour. And let's just start putting the hull in. Comes down and it turns. Doesn't it? Just like that. Then I'll just simply take some Naples yellow and pop some Naples yellow in to this. And what I will also do sometimes is paint one colour and then start softening colours into that. If I take some Naples yellow and a little touch of burnt umber perhaps, okay, and I just fill this in. And as well, I'm not trying to match the colours exactly. There's no fun in that for me. I'm kind of adding my own as well, as I see them. I would say to you, just kind of make it your own. Definitely make it your own. So we have that now. I'm now going to take some light pinky mauve. So a little magenta with some of that blue. Tiny little bit of that. I'm going to pop a little bit of that in. Here and there as well. It's just really to add some variations in colour. I don't want it just to be one solid colour. So for example, I can see a hint of a bluey green as well in there. If you look very carefully, you can see a very light bluey kind of a green. So I'm just mixing some phaylo blue with cadmium yellow. I'm just going to soften a little touch of that bluey green in here and there. Perhaps it's just reflecting something from the water or whatever, but it's nice to add variations of colour in there. Okay, so I'm going to start darkening this section here. I'm going to take some black into some of the browny colour and some Naples yellow. I'm going to start darkening very lightly just in here. I'm going to soften it out. Very gently scraping, you see. And then we need that kind of rusty colour, don't we? I'm thinking cadmium yellow and some burnt sienna. I would say that's probably a good combination. Burnt sienna, cadmium yellow. Put that in, soften it out. Now don't worry if you make little mistakes with your brush, it's absolutely fine. Now, always following the shape of the boat, okay? So we have a nice kind of I think that's quite a nice little colour we have there going on. The next thing for me is that rusty colour. You see that rust? I'm going to try and mix up that rust. I'll try some cadmium yellow, cadmium red. That shouldn't be too far off of what we need. Then I'm simply going to go along and add little lumps of this, imagining this is the line of the board. You know those boards on the side of the boat? Let's just imagine this is the line of those coming along. So let's just have a bit of fun with this now. And we put another little bit along here. So I'm also using this to refine the different boards as well. Take a little more cadmium red in that. As it comes in, it gets kind of darker, doesn't it? Now, I'll finally try some cadmium red and burnt sienna. And get that nice rich darker section in here. So I have those. The next job for me is to take a fan brush. And I'm going to just try this. I'm going to try pulling these down like this, as if it's kind of, this rusty colour is running down along the side of the boat, along the lines, if you understand what I mean. I think that's kind of the effect I'm trying to get. Now this is all practice, it's trial and error. Sometimes it could work, sometimes it may not. It may look a mess, but you never know till you try, I don't think. Now for the final little bit of detail, I think I'll just put a little line, a dark line, just to separate some of the boards. I think it needs something, doesn't it? Let's try a little black. A very thinned out mix of black. And I'll just try and define some of them, okay? And I'm not trying to go crazy with detail on this, but I do want to create a nice painting, a nice impression of a boat. So I like to kind of take my time with stuff like this sometimes. It's nice to kind of get your teeth into something, isn't it? I find it's refreshing for a change, just to kind of really get into something. Now, I'm just going to darken in around here. We're not looking too bad so far, are we? I like the fact that it looks like there's lots of detail there, but there's not really. It's just the impression that we've created by putting little brush strokes here and there. We've created that impression that there's a lot going on. Now I'm just darkening this again. Like so. And I go over this one as well. So putting in these final little details, well, they're not final details, but as you go along, you put in these little things, and suddenly it all kind of comes together. A bit there. I'll put in a nice light down the side of this, I think. We'll get Naples yellow, a little bit of white there as well. And let's put in a little light down the side of this. Like that. Nice little separation there. And then we have a nice black line going across the bottom, don't we? Let's get our thicker brushes, slightly bigger brush, and get some nice thick black. There's perhaps some burnt sienna in there as well. And just pop it in, let's see what happens. Let's just see where it goes and what happens to our boat. A lot of this for me even is trial and error. I don't know if I'm going to do a good job in this or not, but it's all part of trying, isn't it? Because you're never going to know unless you try. Really. You never will know. This line is going to be softened. I'm softening this line very slightly. I don't want a very harsh kind of a line. So I'm softening this just with the tip of my brush very gently, here and there. Okay. Now I'm pretty confident we're almost finished with the boat. There's just a few little areas where we have to add some nice highlights, especially along the tops. Okay. Let's get some white. Little phthalo blue, and I think just with the white and phthalo blue we could add some nice lights. Okay, just like that. And I'm purposely leaving the colours sort of merged together a little bit on purpose. Just soften, clean your brush each time. These small little details, you see how they separate the sections, and they really do work. I'm going to go up here and just again go along, then maybe with some white on its own. And you can see my lines, they're not even straight. I'm not worried about getting all my lines perfectly straight or any of that. Okay, I'll put a little light side on this. And then I will also add a little highlight here and there. I think finally, just some nice bright white along here. Like that. Just go at your own pace. If you feel it's becoming too much for you, I would stop for a while, take a break, and come back to it. I like to kind of just keep going. That's my problem, I suppose. I like to keep going when I'm painting something like this, and I don't know when to stop, which is probably a bad thing, because you need to know when to stop and when enough is enough. Okay, now I think I'll leave it for now and focus on the reflection. Well, actually there's one more thing I want to do, and this is probably me now doodling, which is not a good thing, but I want to get some crisp white. Let's pop some crisp white in on some of the boards just along this right hand edge over here. You see that? I just want to pop some crisp white in. I suppose just defining them a little bit more. There, that's good. Let's move on and do some reflections. I'm anxious to get some reflections done. So go to a smaller brush, small flat kind of a brush, size ½ inch, whatever that is, a size 12 maybe. And I'm going to start with the reflections. Now what time have we got here? We have 40 something minutes. So I call this part 1 finished. And we move on and do our reflections in part 2. How about that? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll stop here at part 1, my friends. I'll be right back with part 2. Thank you so much for watching.